South Africa's unemployment rate hit a record high of 34.4% in the second quarter of this year. Businesses shed staff due to devastating economic impact of COVID-19, and the rate was the highest on record since Statistics SA began their quarterly labour force survey. Agriculture has a higher employment share relative to their gross domestic product contribution. Now, while the formal sector employment in agriculture has decreased by 375,000 jobs between the first and second quarter of 2021, the informal sector saw a rise of about 184,000 jobs. Joining us to unpack these matters is Thandeka Buthelezi, founder and CEO of FINCAMP. Thandeka, very good morning. Good to speak to you. Those numbers, pretty shocking, but you've obviously done some work, and there are minor positives somewhere.
Hi, Hugo.
Hi, Thandeka, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Sorry, you got cut.
So the agricultural sector, certainly where it comes to informal employment, has seen an increase in over 150,000 jobs. Is this the only light at the end of the unemployment tunnel, if you will?
Firstly, I'd like to greet the listeners at home. Thank you for having me. Yes, it is the light at the end of the tunnel, but I wouldn't say it's the only one, because if we're looking at the contributors at the new revised numbers of the real GDP that has been released, agriculture is one of those that didn't really contribute much. In fact, it's sitting on a negative. However, the potential that lies in South Africa, not only on a commercial scale, as well as with small-scale farmers, if we were to pay attention to them, a lot can actually be achieved from the agricultural space.
Now, take us through what the current shortcomings are in the agricultural space and what needs to be done.
Look, I think, Hugo, when we're looking at our policies on paper, they look very good. They're exciting, and you'd really be hopeful and excited of what it promises, and it really shows that our government knows what needs to be done. But probably what we need to do is just to ease off a bit on being hypothetical and start looking at the real factors. We use a lot of hypothesis when we talk about funding of small entrepreneurs in general, small businesses or entrepreneurs in general. When you're talking about access to finance, we don't look at the real issues that are being faced by farmers predominantly. We would say, for instance, if you're looking at the private sector, we have companies that have really exciting enterprise and supply development programs that are run, and they would give implements to farmers. However, they still need cash flow to operate. They still need the proper machinery. And somewhere, somehow, it feels as if the ecosystem is broken. And someone somewhere needs to decide, how do we fix this broken ecosystem? Because the resources are there, but it's just not flowing smoothly in these conveyor belts.
Now, you talk about enterprise development and the work that private or corporate South Africa is doing in mitigating some of these challenges, and obviously that there is a broken link of some sort. Do you feel that it is maybe deliberate oversight, or is there actually a misunderstanding of what the farmer actually needs? Because I'd like to think that if they're investing millions of rand in the processes and in raising the profile of farmers, if you will, that they would do sufficient homework, do a study such as you have done, go on the ground and establish what the actual needs are.
Yeah, look, we would say to a certain extent it is deliberate, because we are also faced with issues of corruption. So that's the deliberate part of it. And we are not going to lie and say there's a lack of resources. There's no lack of resources at all. The resources are there. They're just not getting where they should be getting. And at the same time, probably over and above the policies that exist and the strategies that are put in place, it feels as if we are lacking a bit on the monitoring and evaluation side. We don't have clear monitoring and evaluation tools that are being employed to ensure that whatever strategies that we come with, whatever deliverables that we set for ourselves, probably as a government or institutions that are entrusted with funding and resources for entrepreneurs, at the end of the day, be it monthly, quarterly, or in whatever tenor you decide, are we able to then go back and say, this is what we said we are looking to achieve, And this is the percentage that we have achieved so far. So much of the work is left. I don't think that we are asking for anyone to be perfect, but we are asking for proper monitoring and evaluation as well. That's where we are able to keep each other accountable.
I'm going to come back to a statistic that you raised, and that was the rise, obviously, in the informal side of agriculture, where the employment figures have gone up, but a massive reduction in the formal aspect. Talk us through the discrepancy there.
I think the pandemic itself did have a contribution somehow in the informal side. Not in a huge way, but in a way of exposure, whereby I remember before the pandemic, in farming, a lot of focus was on the commercial side, and very little focus was given to the small-scale farmers, even subsistence farmers. But when then we started having the pandemic and everyone, the lockdown, people were staying at home, they started utilizing their yards, and that somewhere, somehow, actually kind of created an opportunity and a platform for us to start focusing in small-scale farming as a contributor in the South African economy, more than how we were focusing before. And not only that, however, there was a time when there was this myth, I'll call it, whereby people thought young people would never participate in farming. It belongs to the older generation and whatnot. But if you're really looking now, young people are really making farming cool, and they are putting in the work. They are understanding its contribution into the economy of South Africa, and how does this lead to industrialization and factors of food security and so on and so forth.
Thandeka Buthelezi, founder and CEO of FINCAMP, thank you for your time this morning. Just unpacking the figures around the unemployment stats that were released recently.